me formally invite all of you to the 5th annual Few of the Many. As you can see, this is a growing event, and we expect tonight to be really special, because tonight we have travel, we have trailblazers, pathfinders, icebreakers, men and women who made a huge difference in Anne Arundel County. I want to, before we formally get into the program, to recognize the organizing committee who've just done an incredibly great job. Vincent Molden, would you please come forward? There we are, of this incredible committee who's done so much. And while we're waiting for Dee to come quickly, let me just quickly say that we are going to, this committee that you see here is the committee that next month, because you'll be back again, we're going to have what's called the Michelle Obama Awards. The Michelle Obama Awards is a program that has been started out of the county executive office, and it recognizes women in Anne Arundel County who've done marvelous things. You'll be hearing more about the Michelle Obama Awards. Tonight, the event is called Few of the Many. And the reason we call it Few of the Many is we recognize that African Americans have made a tremendous contribution to this nation. Sometimes their contribution go unrecognized. Other times, there are names that, if you mention a person's name, you would know Martin Luther King Jr., you would know Coretta Scott King. But there are other names. Julie Chen. Who is Julie Chen, one would ask? Julie Chen has the dubious distinction of being the first African-American woman married to a vice president, Richard Mentor Johnson, who was a non-vice president of the United States of America. He served under a man named Martin Van Buren, who was president. And here's this tidbit of history that very few people know. Martin Van Buren only served one term. And here's the reason why. When he ran for re-election, he asked his vice president, Richard Mentor Johnson, to disown his wife. His wife was an African American and had 2 black daughters. And he refused to do so. Richard Mentor Johnson and Martin Van Buren lost the election for the presidency. But Richard Mentor Johnson won something great. He won the respect of people who understood that love transcends color. This great organizing committee is going to put together the Michelle Obama Awards again. We're going to be in a position to be able to, again, lift up women who, again, have done so many marvelous things. And I'll share one little tidbit of history with you. It's an incredible moment. It is important that people tell their own stories. Nobody will tell your story better than you. For those of you who love to read, I strongly recommend you read a book called Finding Me. It's by a woman named Viola Davis. Finding Me by Viola Davis. And when you read her story, you will discover something about yourself. In 1984, in the city of Annapolis, I got the best lesson ever on why it's important for people to tell their own story. I had the great pleasure in 1984 at a Black History event at a church called First Baptist Church in Annapolis. 1984, we brought to Annapolis a Rosa Parks. Mrs. Parks, who came to Annapolis at that time, was up in age. Many of you know she died at the age of 92. But she came to Annapolis, and First Baptist Church was packed full of people. And everybody wanted to hear this woman tell her story. And this diminutive woman in her soft voice told her story. At the end, the press asked a question. They asked Mrs. Parks, why did you refuse to give up your seat in Montgomery, Alabama in 1955? And I thought I knew the answer to the question. I had listened to other people tell that story of why she refused to give up her seat. But what she told us on that day, I have never forgotten. And it underscores the importance of why people must tell their own story. Mrs. Parks said that she refused to give up her seat on that day because she refused to give up her dignity. Now that's different from refusing to give your seat up to a white man. It is different than, I'm tired, my feet hurt. Now she was saying that this movement in 1955 was more than about a bus seat. It's about dignity. And so tonight we come to honor men and women who in the spirit of Sojourner Truth, who in the spirit of Congressman Elijah Cummings, keep hope alive and underscore the importance of people recognizing greatness when they see it. My argument has been and continues to be, anybody who knows their history know our greatness. Let's get these guys started. Come and be in their place in their seat. Eugene, could you please come up so as we move the program forward? We've got a number of elected officials, former elected officials with us in the room. Randy back, the short guy in the back. Former alderman. No, not you. No. Look back there. There's a former alderman who is 6'5", and he's short compared to you. Alderman Kenneth Kirby. Former alderman Kenneth Kirby. Councilwoman Allison Pickering. Please stand. Let's give her a round of applause. Jessica Cook, representing Senator Ben Cardin. Please. The President of the Board of Education, Joanna Tober. Got a number of judges in the room. Judge David Duba. Just got elected.
say thank you for the opportunity to be here with you today to celebrate all of you who are making a huge difference with your life. Come on, can we give them a hand? I have a very special person with me here today. It's my dad, Alan Stansberg. He's here accompanying me tonight. If it were not for him, it would be no me. So we hope this song inspires you and just speaks to what you have been to others and what I'm sure somebody in your life has been to you. You right, Dad?
Must have been cold air in my shadow to never have sunlight on your face. You just check that key, I'm sorry. It must have been cold there in your shadow to never have sunlight on your face. You were content to let me shine, that's your way. You always walked a step behind.
I was the one with all the glory, while you were the one with all the strength. Only a face without a name. I never once heard you complain. Did you ever know that you're my hero? You're everything I would like to be, yeah. And I can fly higher than an eagle. You are the wind beneath my wings. It might have appeared to go unnoticed. I got it here, right up in my heart. Oh, yes.
I want you to know the truth because I know it.
Yes, you do, Daddy. Yes, you do.
I would be nothing without you. Yeah.
Did you ever know that you're my hero? Everything I would like to be. I can fly higher than an eagle. You are the wind beneath my wings. Can we say that again? Did you ever know? Did you ever know that you're my hero? Everything I would like to be. I can fly higher than an eagle. Why? 'Cause you are the wind beneath my wings. You are the wind
my wings. Oh, you are the wind beneath my wings.
Let's give him another round of applause. Those who are interested in booking him, Kevin Smith, telephone number 443-77916. 443-447-7916. That's what the television audience is. They practically did. There's really a special moment in history. For those of us who are living today, this is an incredible moment to be living, to be alive. To witness things that people prayed for, hoped for, and died for. Last night I attended an event for the first African American Attorney General. As I observed in that room, when the governor, Westmore, an African American, came in, I saw people just bursting with pride. Think of this, in this state, what this election is doing for us for the first time in American history and Maryland history. For the first time in the history of Maryland, our governor is an African American, our attorney general is an African American, the Speaker of the House is an African American. Yes. The Treasurer is an African American. And 64 members of the Maryland General Assembly are African Americans. To appreciate what that means is you have to have an appreciation of history. 25 years ago, this month, members of the Ku Klux Klan showed up in Annapolis to protest black history, which they call racist in its nature. 25 years later, wonder what they're thinking. We had some phenomenal things happen locally. Delegates who happen to be African Americans getting elected for the first time. We've got more African Americans from Anne Arundel County serving in the Maryland General Assembly than we ever had. But something else happened that I want to take note of as I bring on my next speaker. Anne Arundel County government is relatively young as compared to other governments. And the truth of the matter is, in Anne Arundel County, there's only been one African American woman who ever got elected to the Anne Arundel County Council, which is the late Sarah Carter. We've had only 3 total African Americans serving on the Anne Arundel County Council. One was former Councilman Darrell Jones, and the other is the man of what they do, who has walked in the pages of history. Please welcome to the podium the Honorable Pete Smith, Chairman.
I just want to thank Carl and all of the individuals who are being recognized today. I also want to point out something. Another council member that's here as well, and I know you mentioned her earlier, but Allison Pickard, who was the vice chair of the Anne Arundel County Council. So if you haven't met Allison Pickard, she's a fiery, spirited individual. And I know the administration has worked extremely hard with her over the last 4 years, and I'm honored to have her serving as the vice chair on the county council. She certainly motivates me to bring my A game anytime I come to the county council members. But I do want to speak to something specifically. We talk about history, and yes, I am the first African-American chair for the Anne Arundel County Council, and I totally recognize and understand the shoulders that I've had to stand on to get to where I'm at today. But I want to speak specifically to the members here who are being recognized, to the patriots, the real patriots who are here that have served their community In 1992, I was 12 years old. I used to grow up from Chicago originally, and I was in a neighborhood called the George Pullman area. If you don't know George Pullman, he was a wealthy, multi-millionaire in the early 1900s that built rail cars for the wealthy as they traveled across the country. One of the neighborhoods that was constructed to house all of those workers that worked at his factory, the George Pullman factory, was a lot of sort of impoverished individuals. That was the neighborhood I grew up in when I was 12 years old. And if you've seen the movie The Fugitive with Harrison Ford, in that movie, there was a scene where the one-armed man's house is being broken into by Harrison Ford. And if you notice anything, and I challenge you to go back and look at that clip, there are rows of homes that are all connected. In 1992, I was in that alley as they were filming that movie. But just a few months before that, I was running across the roof on the block that I lived on that was just adjacent to that movie and where it was being filmed. And someone thought their house was going to get broken into, and they called the police. And they saw the two of us coming down from one of the alleys, from one of the stairways, the metal stairways that were on the side of the building. And the two of the police cars pulled up, and they arrested both of us for trespassing. We were both about 12 and 13 years old. And they took us to the police station to be sort of, processed. Though they had a very sort of weird way of processing us. I'll never forget this, and this was, again, for the speakers. As I sit in that police station, I just thought my life was going to be over, because my mom was heavy-handed when it came to disciplinary. That rod was a sturdy rod, and I'll never forget it. And I remember Officer Richards saying to me, "Pete, if you come back to this police station, I won't call your mother." Because I knew my mom, and I just knew there was an extension cord that was calling my name. And I didn't want that, Lord knows I didn't want that extension cord. And so every day after school, for several months, I came back to this police station. It was Officer Richard, an African-American police officer, who had the opportunity to put me in the back of his squad car. The other kid went in the other squad car, and they drove us to the police station. And I tell you that because today, for all of the members that are being recognized, it is not your title, because many of you have worthy titles, but it's your impact. And I say that because Officer Richardson, he had a title. He was a police officer, but his impact was far beyond that. And I'll never forget me coming back to that police station and him allowing me to sit next to him as he was filling out paperwork or whatever administrative things he was doing at that police station. And he impacted my life because that man gave me someone to be. He gave me someone to be. And these recipients and honorees that are here today, I say to you, it's not your title, it is your impact. You are giving other people someone to be. Coach Shane over here, and I don't want to put him on the spot. He coached my son's soccer for the last 2 years. And so while I was absent, attending some of the functions in the community, this man has been like almost a father to my own son. And so it's so honorable for me to be here today to see him. And I know that the councilwoman has spoken highly of you and recognized you and put you in this process. So I'm grateful for her bringing you into this vehicle. But many of you that are sitting here today, I've known you for years. Eugene Peterson, known you for years. It is not your title, it is your impact. Just like Officer Richardson arrested me and became a father figure to me that allowed me to get on the path that I am today, I am so grateful that you all are being honored by the county executive today, because you are changing the lives of thousands of kids in the community. You don't know it yet. That paycheck will be cashed years from now, and someday some child is going to come back and they're going to say to you, "Thank you. Thank you for giving me someone to be." Thank you all.
He also served in the military. But all veterans, please stand. All veterans, please stand. Let's give members of watch people making a difference. People's talking about how years from now, someone will come up and thank persons for having impacted their lives. Government impacts people's lives every day. Sometimes for the good, sometimes for the bad. When people leave public office, having served in public office, I understand legacy. Somebody asked the ultimate question is, what did they do? What difference did they make in people's lives? And when you look historically around the nation, and you look at people who come this way as public servants, you know there are those who have served who have made huge difference. John F. Kennedy, standing before his nation and said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Roosevelt, during the Great Crisis, we have nothing to fear but fear itself, he said. Imagine getting elected as county executive. When the nation would be faced with the virus, businesses would be challenged. This was a challenging time for leadership. It has been said that whenever there is a crisis, leadership either responds to the moment or they're not able to go forward. I remember hearing Benny Thompson, the congressman, say the following. Congressman Benny Thompson from Mississippi. He said, who wants their sons or daughters to grow up to be like Donald Trump? Everybody in the audience understood what he was saying. We want people in public office who's ethical. We want people in public office who will make a difference. We want people in public office who bring people together, not divide. We want people to be leaders. And our next speaker has been just that, a leader who has made a difference. Please welcome to the podium the Honorable Stuart Pittman. Stuart Pittman was the first county executive to endorse Westmore.
And a lot of people looked at me funny. Said, who's he? It's only polling at 1%. But I think I made the right choice. So, well, thank you for being here. Some people have asked why we do this event every year. Why we have chosen to work with this one organization, Caucus of African American Leaders, to do this event every year. And the Michelle Obama, because we've yet to get Michelle Obama to show up, but we're going to work on that. And, but before I explain that, I wanted just a couple of little things. One, I did get a text message from Councilwoman Lisa Rodman from District 6 saying she was intending to come, but she's feeling sick and she didn't want to spread it. So thank you for that, Lisa. But she would have been here. But I also want to especially recognize that we do have our Chief of Police, Amal Awad, pronounced Awad, not Awad, Awad, right? As well as Deputy Chief Gerard Fleming's here. And I point that out not just because they are African American leaders of our police department on Black History Month, but they have been doing amazing work within the police department, particularly teaching African American history and the history of policing in the African American community with the help of the National Museum of African American History and Culture that all of our recruits go to as part of their training. So thank you for your service. I asked Carl earlier today if he had a new girlfriend because he's been so happy lately. Sorry, Carl. But he's laughing, you see. Thursday, he talked about last night's event, and he talked about the election and the results, and what an incredible moment this is in history for this state, for this county, the country too. But we are rocking and rolling here in the and there's great progress being made. But I had to think about again why we do this every year with the caucus, this event, few of the many, Black History Month, and recognize people who are leaders and people who are emerging leaders as well. We have an assortment of people that we are recognizing tonight, and there's a reason why the organization that we co-host this with is called the Caucus of African American Leaders, because it is about growing leaders, existing leaders, but also growing leaders. And I think that's why we probably do more citations at the request of Carl Snowden than anybody else in the country by far, because Carl and the caucus understand how important it is to recognize people who are making a difference and making history, not just so that we can all recognize them and feel good about what they're doing, but also so that they understand that they are making a difference and they are leaders and they are future leaders, to give them the confidence to grow. Because as we try to create and engage diversity in leadership, in power, both in government and in the private sector and everywhere else, but particularly in government, where I'm trying to get it done, the bench is not as deep as it should be. And we're creating the bench here of the people who are going to be not only running for public office, but working in county government, and hopefully someday as county executive of Anne Arundel County. So maybe not that far off, who knows? But that's why we do this, and I just cannot stress how important that is. I spent a decade as a thing called a community organizer, and really what it was a leadership development job. It was about creating the environment through which leaders could emerge, and empowering people to lead something so that then they could grow first in the neighborhood and then to the next level. And I just can't stress how important that is. So let's get on with it and recognize these 14 amazing leaders and emerging leaders. I know most of you, and I respect all of you, and I expect great things from all of you in the future, because you're going to have a plaque to put on your wall, and it's going to make you go out and do the next great thing. So let's get on with it.
Here's how the procedure is going to work. I'm going to be calling the individuals up who's going to introduce Vincent. Vincent Morgan's going to introduce the first two honorees. Once you've been introduced, you'll go to the right, and the county executive will present you with a plaque. You will also begin citations from our Congress representatives, as well as the county council. So Vincent Morgan, that's six to Stewart very recently. He's made a lot of good appointments. But in my opinion, Vincent Bolden was one of his best appointments.
Okay, up first is Miss Nelsa Brown. Miss Nelsa is a pillar in the community of Mill Swamp. When I first met her back in the summer of 2020, it was one of my first community engagement assignments, and the goal was to go to the Ralph Bunch Community Center to observe the food pantry that they were doing there. So again, the goal was to observe, but Miss Nelsa put me to work, and she's been working me ever since, but it's been an honor. us were motivated by what happened with George Floyd. She took that energy and that feeling and she put together a Black Lives Matter march in Pasadena. So this is my first time getting to meet her, but I remember when she held that march and the county executive came back to the office after attending and just stated how proud he was. So congratulations.
Phyllis Carey Spencer could not be here this evening. She's traveling, but briefly, she is a member of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Committee. And that committee, as many of you are aware, is responsible for creating the first first Coretta Scott King Memorial Garden, as well as the Civil Rights Foot Soldiers Memorial in downtown Annapolis. And recently was able to complete the Guardians of the First Amendment. Here to accept on her behalf is Roz Hill. There are two people in this room who've been hearing but who made incredible history. Again, those who can appreciate history, really for that moment. There's certain things that just happen in a special moment. And when our next honoree got elected, she not only gave all of us the pride that we rightly deserve, but she reminded people of why elections and voting is important. What I loved about her race was if you went to the political pundits, they said she wouldn't have a chance to win. They would say there's never been an African American elected to this office. They said we did the polling and she can't win. Her opponent got 10 times the amount of money that she has. But she knew something. There is something she knew. She knew that ultimately the judge is the supreme being, and when he says it's your time, it's your time. Please welcome to the podium the owners of Arundel Griswold, the first African American who made the virtual win.
God did this. Did it.
Dee Goodwin, come forward, please. Dee will be introducing our next honoree.
I need her computer.
Thank you. I'm honored to have been chosen to introduce Arlene Jackson as one of this year's recipients of the Sojourner Truth, a few of the many awards this year. So, during a number of conversations that I've had with Arlene, she had shared with me how volunteerism has really been in her blood, because as a young girl, her mother had her volunteering in her community to help those in need. So when I personally met Arlene, I just watched her, and I do a lot of watching people too. And Priscilla, you know that, I told you that too. But I do. But I was watching Arlene and how passionate she was in helping volunteering for the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Committee, Awards Dinner Committee, and the Fannie Lou Hamer Committee. And Arlene is very shy, active. And in fact, it reminds me of myself sometimes. But she works from the back. And you all, most of you, I suppose, have experienced how wonderful the King dinners are and the Fannie Lou Hamer events are. And it requires people like Arlene who work in the background to make things happen. And I know that Carl is wonderful at organizing these events, but it's people like Arlene who does a lot of legwork. And so she got my attention. So, as I said, it's in her blood. And I congratulate you.
Years before Arundel County, the state of Maryland, and the nation declared Juneteenth to be a holiday, our next honoree was doing it on her own. Please welcome to the podium, Rosalind D. Johnson Jones. And it's always people who see men and women, members of the clergy, help to change people's lives. Please welcome to the podium the President of the United Black Clergy, Apostle Antonio Palmer. And First Lady.
So it is our distinct pleasure to be called her pastors. And so I want my wife to say something because I just said a little scale because I don't want to say too much about another woman. Better than my wife could do. So let her speak.
I just want to say that Priscilla, anybody that's been in a room with Priscilla will always recognize that she's a giver. She volunteers her time everywhere. No matter where you look, Priscilla's going to be there. If somebody was running for office, Priscilla would take her time off and go help you. She went knocking on doors. She did everything she could to support. If there was something going on in the church, she would drop everything she was doing to just come and support us. So that's just the heart that Priscilla has. She volunteers to help us. She works at our child care center. She'll volunteer to do anything we need. And if you need her, she's there. So Priscilla, we honor you today and we celebrate you. This award is so deserving.
Priscilla Monroe. Hold up. Got me to roll.
There is the Congressman Elijah Cummings really was named in honor of a man many of us personally knew. The last time Congressman Cummings spoke, he spoke here in Alabama County, he spoke at West County Democratic Club. And it was a story that he told. I always remember that story. He was trying to integrate a swimming pool. That's what he was trying to do. Just integrate a swimming pool. And adults were screaming obscenities at him and names. And he said he didn't understand. Why are they doing this? All I want to do is swim. And this woman who was leading the effort, African-American woman, happened to be a lawyer. And she said to Elijah, you need to go to law school. They never thought of that. We need people like you to help make America better and not bitter. And the rest is history. He went on to do many great things. But the one line I remember so well was when he was in the Congress and we had all this foolishness going on. And he just said, come on, man. We're better than that. And he captured the spirit of the NAACP, which has been fighting for over 100 plus years to make America better, because we're better than that. And one of our new leaders of the NAACP, we come to honor tonight, who takes that same spirit that Elijah has, to simply say, America, we can live better. Please welcome to the podium the Reverend Ricky Nelson Jones.
struggles, triumphs, and traumas of life, he has always found a way to give back. My dad takes great care of himself, so his cup does runneth over, and when it does, it flows into every person he interacts with, whether it be through his positronic music, his motivational speaking, his massage business, his personal training sessions, or his book, Dream and Lead. He always looks for an opportunity to help people focus inward so that they can be the best versions of themselves, to get out and face the world. So Dad, I'm proud of you, and thank you, because if it weren't for you and Mom, I wouldn't be where I am today. Congratulations.
Let me take a moment to recognize one of our outstanding leaders in the community who've done great things. We talked about history tonight, and she's done a marvelous job at the Banneker Douglas Museum. Chanel Compton.
Yes.
Newlywed Johnson. Let's give her a round of applause. Our next honoree has served this county in many ways. Served on the Board of Education. He's now the chair of the Anne Arundel County Human Relations Commission. Eugene Peterson is one of those men that when people write the history books, they'll write about the contributions that he made. As a member of the school board, he was one of the strongest voices advocating for all students to get a fair and equal education. Please welcome to the podium my friend and yours, Eugene Peterson. Youth leadership means the future. It was county executive that said that you have to have this bench. You have to be able to develop the leaders for tomorrow, the emerging leaders. I wanted to at one moment, Vincent, argue with you, but who should really make this introduction? I'm going to let you do it. Come on.
I know this next honoree because his mother insisted that I meet him and help him on his campaign to be dispensed by work with in the county executive's office. And since I have a hard time saying no to her, I said yes. But I got to meet this wonderful young man who is so intelligent, compassionate, and just loves his community. He can be a little hard-headed sometimes, which is also all qualities his mom shares with him. So. But although Keanu, he's done many things, and he's the eldest of 6 in his family, he's kind of become the little brother I never thought I'd needed. So, congratulations, Keanu.
Incorporated, it pains me to say the following. Are there any Kappa Alpha Psi's in the house? The reason why I asked for any Kappa Alpha Psi's in the house, because the next awardee, the Monte L. Reed, did something that is pretty hard to do. He would recognize his chapter brother of his chapter, brother of the year. So we should give him a round of applause for that. I want to point out that this young brother is only 27 years old. And in 27 short years, he's managed to graduate from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. He's the president of the Boys and Girls Club of Annapolis in Freetown Village. And so that is why we are honoring that young brother tonight. So please put your hands together as he comes to the podium.
I wanted to do a quick commercial. Dr. John Watten's in the house. There's going to be a very important program at Arundel Community College, which we would encourage people to go to. And he's sitting next to a good friend, Dimitri. Let's acknowledge Dimitri. Dimitri is one of the ones that helped the Chief and I actually had a conversation, Stuart. There was a reason I didn't put her name in at the time, because she and I had talked about something, because I wanted her to be a part of this program. Oh. And what I've asked, when you become the first, there's a moral responsibility not to be the last. Somehow you must understand that when you reach certain heights, President Barack Obama once made this observation. And you think about it. President Obama, as great as he was and is, do not ever believe that there were not men and women who could not have been president before Barack Obama. The truth of the matter is, when people know the history, there'd be no Barack Obama had there not first been for Shirley Chisholm. That's right. I hope people understand that. The Reverend Jesse Jackson, Run Jesse Run, would create an atmosphere for people to believe. I'm old enough to remember when there was no county executive in Prince George's County. He was black, no state's attorney. I don't want people to forget the sacrifices that people made. Too often we ignore the history makers. And so every time there is somebody who breaks the barrier, somebody who's the icebreaker, the pathfinder, they have the responsibility to make sure they're not the last. And I wanted the chief to come and introduce our next honoree, because they have something in common. People are looking at them and measuring them every day. And when they're successful, we are successful. Chief, please come forward.
On October 22nd, 1990,
County Police Academy. We were so young and naive and gullible. Everett, the one question I have of you this evening is, and I know our career paths kind of mirrored when we had breaks away from the profession. I'm interested to see in the next 4 years, well, I'll pose my question first. How did you manage to keep your hair dark? Is it a secret? Water? Help us this out. On a serious note, I was so excited when Everett was elected for many, many reasons. One, specifically because I know this man. I know his heart. I know his passion. And most recently, we had a very intimate conversation. And I just want you all to be assured that you elected the right person. Congratulate all the awardees, and I'm posing a conversation I had with the councilwoman today. We spoke about those of us who step into these roles, particularly in this moment, and if not us, then who? So, Everett, congratulations. I'm very proud of you, my love.
I was a little afraid what she was going to say. That's all right, Aaron. I have you this way. You got this one.
Would all judges please stand? Would all the judges please stand? It's in the room. All the judges, please stand. Let's give them. Ultimately, people seek justice. Not a judgeship, but justice. And our next person who will be making the next presentation is somebody who has spent his career seeking justice. He's gone on to national prominence as the co-chair of the TJC, Transformative Justice Coalition. He made history as the first African-American male to get elected in Anne Arundel County. It's my pleasure to bring to the podium the Honorable Darrell Jones.
Check me your credentials.
I could never pull anything by County Executive Stewart's Pittman. As I was coming up, I had to ask the gentleman who stood up, where was he a judge? I had not appeared in front of him and was going to alter what I had to say. But I can assure you that the best judge that's sitting in Anne Arundel County happens to be a friend of mine that goes by the name of Shane Spencer. And I want to just share with you why I say that. Carl will remember Clayton Green Jr. And he will remember that when Judge Green decided to run for the circuit court, I was one of the people that was charged with the task of running his campaign. And I would often be asked the question, why does Anne Arundel County need a black judge? Aren't you being treated fairly in the court system? Justice, after all, is blind. And I think they must have forgotten that I'm a litigating attorney. And I said without question, you're absolutely right. And so this is what I think we should do. I think all the judges should be black. Because it's going to be fair. And needless to say, the person just sort of turned a couple shades of burgundy. Walked away. But I say this about Judge Spencer. What he brings to the bench isn't just an equal hand of justice. What he brings to the bench isn't just a personality. What he brings to the bench is this. I know of no other county in the state of Maryland that has a judge that has founded and started a truancy court. And what he does with this truancy court is that he understands that if you catch kids at a young age and you bring them in and you work with them, that you can develop really good young folks and young leaders. And people ask the question, is the truancy court really working? I can answer without hesitation that there are young boys and girls in this county that have benefited. They have received counseling. Many that don't have the father figure, he's it. He gives them his cell number. Call me. In addition to all of that, he also serves as the athletic director for the county sports league in West County. No pool in West County. He asked me to say that. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce the judge in our county that is really working his fingers to the bone to make this county the best county that it can be, Judge Shane Spencer.
Before we end with this musical tribute, one of the things that many people know, that when we have our community meetings, we take a moment, it's so important, to remind people of what Dr. King told us over and over again. Dr. King told us more than one time that when people goodwill join hands to make America better. And there's so many examples of that in this nation. My mother, who was born before women had the right to vote, was able to see women get the right to vote because people goodwill join hands. My grandfather, my mother's father, lived in a place called Davidsonville, Maryland. He died at the age of 60 because he had a stroke, and when Dr. Martin went to Arundel General Hospital, they didn't accept black patients. They told him he had to go to Freeman Hospital. And there's no question that delay of getting service led to his death. Whenever people join hands, they do make America better and the world. Nelson Mandela, Baron, is in a prison in Robben Island. And when people around the world joined hands, he walked out of that prison into the presidency of South Africa. when people join hands, they make a difference. And that's what Dr. King told us, but he told us something else, Brother Allen. This is the one that we have the most difficult time with. Dr. King told us we also have to learn how to love one another. So wherever you are, please stand. Wherever you are, please stand. Those who've been in community meetings know the exercise is coming. But there's some people here that have never had this exercise. What I would say to you, those of you who are standing, now let me be clear. Let me be clear. You may be holding somebody's hand or standing by somebody you never stood by before. Or you may have been waiting a long time to hold this person's hand. Please look in your neighbor's eye, right or left. The eyes are the window to one's soul. When you look in people's eyes, you really know who they are. Look in their eyes and just simply say, I love you. Sister Allison, I have heard people say before that they love somebody. I had that experience at the age of 14, and the next day the girl was with somebody else. So I understand love. I know what love is. Love is when you have that tingling feeling. You know, Stuart said something earlier today. Does he have a new girlfriend? He's so happy. Well, somebody said. But when you look your neighbor in the eye, it is the window to the soul. And when you say, I love you, if you don't get that tingling feeling, let's try this again. Look your neighbor in the eye, male or female. I want you to know something. Brother John Dove, I just want you to hear this. Because this moment of history. Here's what I was hoping that would have happened. But the seating got out of line. I wanted Reverend Margaret Morris sitting next to the chief. When you looked her in the eye and said, I love you. I just wanted that to happen. Because that would have been a historic moment. And we're going to see to it that love flows in this cabinet. On a final note before we get to the musical selection. Those of you, please join us next month at this facility, where we will be giving out the Michelle Obama Awards to women. And I just want to make this point. I saw something that I've only seen it twice at a public function. But when I see it, it just makes me feel so good. During one of our few of the many, the county executive had an opportunity to interview one of the recipients that night on television. And one of the recipients who's not here with us tonight, though his father is, was Randy Curtis Jr. And I'll never forget how he expressed his love for his father. Tonight, when I saw your daughter, Pierre, express that love, I know what love is. You can feel it.
Beautiful.
We've seen so many times when America is at its best, the love gets displayed. So many times. And I want to end on this note. because it captures where we are in America today, whether we like it or not. There's a song, there's a poem that I've been listening to. It's still in my head. I've seen so many times our people weeping. Some injustice that have occurred. I've got 2 sons. And like many parents who live in today's world, you wonder if they're going to be safe. It is something about watching the funeral of the man who died in Memphis, Tennessee. Seeing people crying over the senseless death. And the thing I think I will take with me for the rest of my life, I know Memphis. Memphis, Tennessee is the town in which Dr. King lost his life. Lorraine Motel. What many do not know is that a young man was murdered by police officers in Memphis. Wasn't living when Dr. King came this way. But what had struck me, and I just can't get it out of my head, he's yards away from his mother. And he started calling his mother. Mama! Mama! And the mother says she didn't hear him. But intuitively she felt something was wrong. Just felt it. Most have forgotten. George Floyd called for his mother. And she was deceased. The reason we celebrate women, the reason we're going to have the Michelle Obama Awards given to women, because if people really knew the true history of this nation, really knew the sacrifices that women had made, I don't want people to get it wrong. Somebody told a lie. I want to make sure every attorney, every lawyer in this room understands. It is not true. It is not true that for the first time in American history, women lost the right to be able to control their bodies. Many people told us that when the Supreme Court handed down that decision. But when you're a student of history,
that's right, tell it.
You know something. The Supreme Court, that was not the first time they did that. First time the Supreme Court did that was in 1857. The case was called the Dred Scott decision. And that decision said that black people had no rights that white people were bound to respect.
That's right.
And when that federal Supreme Court decision was handed down, black women could be raped, and they were. Black women could be abused, and they were, because the Supreme Court of the land said these women had no rights. Or if people only knew Sojourner Truth, really knew who she really was.
That's right.
Know why she took the name Sojourner Truth. God, she said, spoke to her. Ain't I a woman, she said? Don't I deserve the same respect as anybody else? She said. This young girl, who probably know nothing but Sojourner Truth, wrote this poem with these words. Emma, she said, I just want to go home. I just want to go home. I've broken no law. I just want to go home. Sirens blaring, lights flashing, a baton hitting him over and over again. Stop running. I'm not running. Get on the ground. I'm already on the ground. And the nation watched. Cherie Nichols lost his life. That didn't happen in in 1723. It happened in 2023.
Right.
If there's any one thing I want to leave with this group, is our best days are ahead of us. This struggle is not over. We still have some difficult days ahead of us. But I am of the belief that many of the men and women in this room, those who have been honored and those who have served, owe it not to themselves, but to generations yet unborn. I want America where you do not have to say to your son and daughters, because they happen to have pigmentation, a different pigmentation, keep quiet. When you're being abused, keep your mouth shut. I want people to say to their children, you have every right to be respected and protected as any human being on the face of this earth. We're going to make America what it ought to be. As Dr. King said, we're going to make it true to what's on the paper. That Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men and women are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among those rights is the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That is the kind of America that we've been fighting for. That is the kind of America we've yet achieved. But I am convinced every day we get closer and closer to making America better.
We give Mr. Snowden a hand for that. You see, we don't have the band tonight. If you have rhythm, I need you to help me and clap your hands. If you don't have rhythm, find your spot somewhere. Just jump in there, all right? Here we go. There you go. People, keep on living. Soldiers, keep on moving. Well, keep on turning. 'Cause it won't be too long. Come on, y'all. Oh, no. Powers, keep on lying. While your people keep on dying. Well, keep on turning, yeah. 'Cause it won't be too long. Come on, King. Time to take this tambourine. You can play. Come on. Here we go. I'm so glad you let me try it again. The last time I learned to live the whole world is said. I'm so glad I got no more than I know that. Gonna keep on trying till I reach my higher ground. Yeah, yeah. He was talking about love, y'all. Lovers, keep on loving. Believers, keep on believing. Yeah. Sleepers, please stop sleeping. No, 'cause it won't be too long. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I'm so glad you let me try it again. The whole time when I had to live a whole what I said. I'm so glad I know what I know then. I'm gonna keep on striving till I reach my higher ground. Now y'all got some voices out there. Come on, let me repeat after me. Let me hear you say, higher, 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 higher. Say higher, higher, higher. 1, 2, 3. Come on, give yourself a hand.